well, how I found life um, contradictory and multifaceted, uh, at the same time, dual and non-dual. It's like it was part of my travel and journey to look into how things are, and I found that life is very multifaceted, of many layers of ideas and practices, that has been spread all over the world like different flowers or different kind of fields and different kind of fruits and trees. Um, I found it also all connected, even though it's opposites that's meeting, or maybe uh, what we call the light and the dark in the same time at the same person. It's like the yin and yang situation where every darkness has some light in it, and every light is enticed with a little darkness, and sometimes this takes over or collaborate with the other, and that's how everything is. There is always a backside to the coin, and everything has a shadow, and nothing is eternally forever stable. It's all in a kind of movement, but it's all related, and in a way, all maybe part of what's necessary. I can't say, but this is just the opinions I got to hold in the end. So how to deal with a life that's so multifaceted, and you at the same time have a choice to ignore some of it or reject it? Because when I look at people's minds and ideas and ideologies, I feel myself attracted to some of it more than others, and I find goodness and light in some and reject others as a carrier of darkness and wrongdoing. And that's also part of the messages that we get all over in every culture and society, every religion and philosophy. There is a choice, and this choice is made in that religion or philosophy, and none of them is able to uh, to reject that they have in their DNA a kind of something they like and others they don't, practices they uphold and others they deem unfit, people they seem on the right way and others they throw out in a kind of isolation or lower stage, and at the same time they know that they are not alone doing this. So what to do about all that when you are in a multifaceted world that has so many colors in it of culture and beliefs and ideas and practices, and at the same time you find some kind of truth? Should you just reject that there is any kind of truth? So what do you do with every culture emphasizing some kind of truth and some kind of better way to live and some kind of ideal or realistic what can you say, sets of ideas and practices for you and for others? Every culture and every nation has a law, and that law is per se the foundation of that culture, and it is a choice. That law could have chosen more restrictions or more openness. It could have chosen to allow things that it has forbidden and forbid things that it has allowed. So it has taken a choice. It has put something out and others in. And that's the same you can say about the religious ideas and ideologies in politics. It's kind of choices. What you emphasize is what you choose, and that becomes the truth for you in life. That doesn't mean that people cannot see the other side or accept it and go into a pragmatic relation with it. That happens between nations, cultures, religions, and ideologies sometimes, but it also entices fights and rejection, hatred, and a kind of evil spirit reaction to the other, because it's like winning terrain or losing it, winning for your ideas and the truth you uphold, or losing to that idea and the truth you uphold. So what do you do? And how is it that when you look at the history of humankind, when you go all the way back, and you can read and see that it has always been cultures struggling. if you believe in the idea of evolution, you can see that, and I say the idea of evolution because I know it's scientifically proven that there has been an evolution and people and life and nature evolves. That's not far from the truth. There are scientific basis for that. But when I say the idea, it's because it's opposed by another hypothesis and another theory that says it has holes in it and it doesn't hold water. And that's the notion of the intelligent design and the creation of man. And people who have looked into that, also biologists and naturalists and people who are scientific minded, they have been after the reasons that evolution have put forward and looked into them and found holes in them. And as long as we haven't gotten rid of arguments on both sides that can be plausible arguments, makes every side a theory and not a scientific truth or fact. And so when I say the idea of evolution, if you believe in that and that is true and you reject the other, you cannot but see that the others also have some kind of reason that is plausible and that can argument for itself and win people over because it has some reasoning that's as well as yours. And so what to do about that? Sometimes it's the intolerance that wins and people just want to teach only one kind of science and spirit, and they want to reject the others or suppress it. It gets suppressed sometimes. People gets fired or put out of order if they're doing all that. And so the same goes for what you believe in. If you see all the way back in history, you see different cultures. If you believe in the creation of man and Adam and Eva and the Satan and the devil and all these dark creatures and the fight between them, and then when they came to earth, and we know the very known story of the kids, one of them envying the other and getting rejected by the God that he offered to and seen as untrue in his heart, made him react very harshly, and the fight started, and the struggle came to be a tragedy of death and killing. And so when you look back at our history, it has these dark chapters, and it has always the struggle of who's accepted and who's not, and what to do when you feel rejected or out of the loop or your culture isn't winning. You try to fight back, and the culture that is winning tries to suppress it and hold it back. And sometimes in history we have seen cultures living a majority with a minority in it, or many minorities in it, like you find the Roman culture, where they try to integrate at some point in their history different type of cultures and beliefs, and upholding the notion of the loyalty to the empire as the most important, and the laws of the Romans. And so it didn't matter what kind of religion or culture you had, because what matters was your loyalty and where you belonged in that society. And so it became more your political views or how you accept or reject that way of leading a country, a state, an empire. And that's we have had all the time. It's always been ideas that had both struggled and cooperated and inspired each other. And at the same time, you are in it and you have to choose. And that happened to me as well. It was easy in my young days to choose something because I was a seeker, and my heart fell for the religious spirituality, and I became part of that. And I still got my education and learned a lot about society and a little bit about philosophy, and I digged further into that later in my life and got inspired even more. But that put also some critical light on my former views and beliefs, and today I can relate. I can relate to people who are very, very religious and understand their feelings and passions, and how they can't understand the other group and the other people. Many times they shake their heads and say, God, these people are blinded. They cannot see the grace and love and light that we have in this religious community. And The other side, they look at these closed groups of religious people, or maybe big or small groups, or maybe nations based on religion, and they shake their heads as well and say, how can these people live under this superstition and these rules of life that's binding them without necessarily, I am more free and I follow my conscience, or I have the rules of the law in my country and that's enough. And what to choose among that, especially if you have the insights that you can see both sides giving their own arguments towards a better way of life. It is easy to rush into some conclusion, and sometimes we do it because we have to be part of something. And so we can sometimes choose pragmatically, and sometimes we can choose fundamentally, like out of principle. If you choose pragmatically, it's because if you are in a certain nation and at a certain place in a certain time, that's very natural to have your loyalties to that nation and time, especially if you are an employee or you're gaining some goods out of it, not directly, but by being part of that. It's like being part of an ideological party and others are outside it. Would you choose to be a member or outside it and thereby cut yourself off of many good jobs? You have to be a very principled person and a very insightful person to reject an ideology or a religion or a way of life or maybe an atheist notion and that is dominating society, to go against the stream, as they say, or in a different way than the stream. And while you do that, choosing out of pragmatism, you get this conflict inside you because you know you don't believe in all that and you maybe have your doubts. Or maybe the opposite is happening. You have a strong belief, but you cannot really live it and you cannot really get support to it. So you hold back and you keep it for yourself. Or you maybe keep it in small circles, alternative circles. That happens all the time for people, and I could see that. And so there is the pragmatic choice and you have the fundamental principle choice you can do in your life. And sometimes you are the principle guy in a pragmatic situation, or you are the pragmatic guy with some principle society you have to accept and repeat, but you don't really adhere to these principles. Or you have your principles and you cannot really show them in a kind of society that's all pragmatic, and you cannot really have your views out as you want them. And so you go find a niche or an alternative group. That happens in politics, in religion, and in atheist groups as well. Wherever a minority feels suppressed and feel that its views is not coming through and they are maybe afraid not to being accepted or maybe being isolated, then they go into hiding and into secrecy, and they start an alternative movement as much as they can, and the majority comes looking for them. Sometimes it depends on the political system, or isolate them in a gentle way without persecuting them or just crushing their ideas by distorting their views, or maybe isolating people from hearing it. And that's the way of life. That's what I could see, and that's why I used many years to look into and to try and understand. So whatever I do, I can be in one of these situations, and so maybe sometimes it's easier not to choose if you can get away with just waiting, observing, and being that one who does not belong to anything really, but belong to it all, or maybe just look at it all. And that's been the path of some of the scientific people who have been studying religion and anthropology and maybe social culture and society. They can go about and say, well, I'm just an observer. I see how it works and I don't judge. And what about yourself? Do you have a belief? And some have one, and they try to keep it out of the loop, or they try to use it to promote or they promote something. And others, they try to be neutral, say, I do not interfere in anything. Things are as they are, and they move and colorate as they are. And then I look back at this and say, okay, this is a nice position to be in. to be the observer and to be the cool scientific head who is just looking at how cultures are struggling and fighting and cooperating and putting forward that notion or maybe writing about it from time to time. But at the same time, there is something in you, in anyone that calls us to action and to be part of something. Because at one point or another, we will be facing something that we don't like, that makes us react or get out on the street or maybe go and become members in something different, or we oppose it in our heads and with our friends. And so, can we actually be neutral at all as humans, or are we always in a way doomed to be part of something? And if you can see this picture with me right now, that you are always part of something, and you sometimes fight for it and sometimes are pragmatic about it, depends on your situation and time. That means we are always in a kind of struggle and movement, and whoever has let this happen in life and whoever is behind it all has a reason for it. It's like this yin and yang always interacting, and the circle is being bigger or smaller. So it's a lot of contradictions, but in a way, in a circle that's all related. And sometimes out of the darkest moments comes the most brightest people, and out of the most brightest societies comes the most dark-hearted individuals who bring along destruction and burning of cities and hatred and persecution. And so we have seen it, and it keeps repeating in history and in society of our life. And that makes it difficult, because you look at all this contradiction and in a way duality between good and evil, and at the same time it's really not a duality, it's a non-duality. It all belongs to each other, and every man has his shadow, and every ideology has its negative sides, and the pure light has really never shed its face on something or anyone without any kind of rejection, not yet. And maybe we believe that the big religious figures and the holy books and spirit of God has this in it, has the whole truth and the light. And if you are a Christian, you will say Jesus had this light. But look closely at history. If you look at Buddha and Moses and David and then Jesus and Muhammad and Johannes and the others, you will say that they were carrying the light, but the effects on life has been a kind of crush and duality, and it brought changes, and maybe it brought a strong light, but from underneath it came also a lot of darkness and changes that maybe wasn't intended, but it happened. And it maybe changed people to become even more like bad doers or rejectors and arrogant. So should this light never have happened, or is it just the nature of life and time? This is what the religions tell you. They say this is the nature of it. Every time we go into dark pits and we are in situations where we have forgotten the source of this light, it comes crushing in, and it shows its value among people. And then many will reject it and cannot take the light, as Plato will be saying. If you have been living in the cave for so long, looking at the shadows of the wall, never looking out at the sun directly, you cannot just turn around and go out of that hole and look directly at the sun as it is shining into your cave and making these shadows on the wall. You cannot like take that light in, and that's what makes some people be scared of the light. As he said, that the tragedy is not people scared of the dark, but grown-ups scared of the light. And I think it was Mark Twain or some kind of author who said that. I can't really remember. The idea is very beautiful, that we sometimes see this kind of light as too much, or maybe not true enough, and so it has its own shadow, casting its shadow on us and societies. And that's what keeps going on. And where do we go in all this? And then we resign. Sometimes a kind of resignation. You just, after many years of thinking, I came to that conclusion at some point that, okay, whatever I choose, I will have opponents and I will have people not liking what I choose. And as this guy told about his mom, uh, he always tried to avoid any conflicts and any ideas and ideologies. And then his mom told him, listen, my son, even if you go as flat as the pancake, the people will say, why is this pancake there? It's annoying and it's my way. So stop going flat to people and ideas, and stand for what you think is right and you have come to feel is correct for you. And if we all do that, well, okay, we lose the pancakes, but we get stone walls and we get tanks crushing each other all the time. So we are not gonna get out of this contradictory situation of wanting to find the truth that leads us to peace, and at the same time we're doing that, we are actually enticing the duality of good and evil, and enticing fights over it. And it's all related at the same time. So it's like kind of non-dual reality, that all belongs to one entity and same spirit and same source, the godly source that we can talk about from time to time. And at the same time, it's full of dualities of sun and moon, and light and dark, and good and evil, and people's ways of thinking. And that's why Nietzsche had this project of speaking beyond good and evil, and a society that goes beyond all this fighting. I'm not tapping into that in this talk. I'm not trying to say what Nietzsche is saying, or that I can relate to that in this reflection. I'm just saying that after years of thinking, I came to realize I will always be on all three pathways. I will always be part of something contradictory to others, and I will always be choosing something that I uphold as truth or better way. It doesn't need to be the totalitarian truth that some people don't like and think is so evil and obsessive. It can be a kind of upholding a better way of life. Like if you like humanism and think it's better than authoritarianism, and you like the liberal societies more than the communist, that doesn't mean you reject everything about the communists, but maybe you think the liberal ways are better. And sometimes you are hardcore ideologist in one of these two entities, and you can be a religious figure or an atheist figure, and you can be raised to reject everything that you do not find scientifically proven, and you can be raised to think that we cannot prove everything scientifically yet, but we know there is stuff beyond it, and everything you do can entice a fight and a difference and a challenge and a duality. And at the same time, we are all related, and it's all related. So how do we get over it, and how do we get above it? And that has been one of the big questions I cannot answer, and I don't really know how to deal with in my life. I try to find myself loving all cultures and trying to look at them from their own perspective, and let them look at others from others' perspective. Maybe that could be a way of getting closer to a kind of global peace. So maybe that's it. We are just bound for the fight and for the rejection and for the acceptance, and breaking through with our lights and our darknesses at the same time. And we are all related. And whatever we do, we come to push the other part into a stronger reaction, as one of these inspirational moments was in the Batman movie, because when he started fighting crime, then a more stranger and evilish and destructive figure appeared. That was the Joker, and he became a very big fascination later, and also outside the movies he became a fascination for many people. So they made movies about him, all the obscure and ununderstandable about him made people also fascinated with him and Harley Quinn and Death Squad and all these kind of anti-heroes and the time of the Death Watch and all this heroism that actually hides the shadows in it and the evil in it. So the hero is dark inside also. Otherwise, he wouldn't be a hero trying to get above this or maybe try to fight it. And at the same time, it brings darkness the other way around. And maybe we're just bound on these non dualistic and at the same time very dualistic levels of being alive. That has been my conclusions about until now, and I have chosen to be part of something and to look at life from a certain angle and perspective, but this time with these insights that are very valuable and very different from when I was a young man and really fought for a one-sided and single what can you say, single-handed truth that I upheld as the only right one, and that it can break through every darkness and every wrong thing. And maybe it's not the meaning. Maybe it's more what I've just told of insights that are part of who we really are and our struggles in life. And I don't know what way is out of this maze. Maybe it's like these maze runners, totally hermetic, closed. They did find a way out in the end, but it wasn't the easiest one. Yeah, so that was some ideas on life as a duality of thoughts and ideas, a contradictory situation, and at the same time all related in a non-dual way, and at the same time upholding its contradictions into itself for the yin and yang to be dynamic and interactive. We have always to understand that every light has a darkness, and every darkness can hold in it a kind of light that can grow or get surrounded